Session. What's the matter? The phone can be heard on here. Did you tell the chief? We're going to do the pledge and then we will continue with the meeting.
Trustee Fritchie?
Present.
Trustee White? Trustee Yote?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Lopez?
Here.
And Mayor Levin.
Here. Thank you.
Mayor and trustee announcements.
Okay, folks, do you have any announcements?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. So wishing everybody tomorrow is the first day of spring, although it feels like today's the first day of spring. Also, please, trying to find, Jamie, if you can tell me the date. We got information from the Project Mover e-bike program, and that is, can you give me the date?
Sure. The event is on Sunday, the 23rd.
Right, Sunday, March 23rd, what time?
I have to double check.
Okay. Well, look for the information. It was in the mayor's message and all. We want to encourage everyone in the community to go. There's like an education forum to tell how to use it. The important piece of the phase of the e-bike program now is that we're moving on to more bicycles. We are looking at leasing, depending on folks who need some financial support that otherwise would not be able to lease or own the bikes. So we're very excited about that. For those of you that have been driving on Water Street or by Water Street, by 30 Water Street, this weekend they put up the fencing, they're doing some more work, trucks are being parked across the way, or concrete, all sorts of cool, big machinery. That says to me that the kill is in the process of being going forward, and we're now finally seeing above ground some real progress in the all affordable housing project, 109 units, some public space, and some retail, possibly commercial space, etc. Very exciting stuff. You'll see the fencing also, so please drive carefully while that is happening. So these are all things that are happening. We're happy to be moving forward on those projects. I do encourage folks, there's a lot of information in my message, along with others from elected officials at different level of government. The imposing Con Ed rate increase proposal is a serious matter. It is, from my personal point of view, really one of the largest increases. It isn't clear to me that they're justified. And I encourage everyone who uses Con Ed and people in the public sector, residents, businesses, etc., everybody will be affected. It's a pretty high double-digit increase. And for those of you that have solar panels, doesn't exempt you. Your price will also go up. I have solar panels and I could see the increases already. Pete Harcum, Dana Levenberg, representing our district, but many folks, including an event tonight discussing this. Please stay tuned to that. Please participate. Please write to Con Ed. Our communication project manager, Jamie Hoffman, in the mayor's message, really delineated all the places that you can be involved as part of the energy issues that are going on here. And so I encourage everyone to participate in that as well. Excuse me. Okay. I think we're ready for the next item on the agenda.
Okay, this evening we have a special presentation from Sustainable Westchester, the 2025 Westchester Power Agreement.
Hello,
State your
gentlemen.
name and
Hello, does that sound right? Okay, great.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees, and everyone else for having us. My name is Nick Tedrow. I am the Deputy Program Director for the Westchester Power Program at Sustainable Westchester. I'm also a Village of Ossining resident, and I'm on the Village's Environmental Advisory Council as well. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Saul Zakowski and Abe. It's his first, he's new to our organization, and this is his first board meeting he's ever been to. So I'm gonna let him say a word about himself. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saul. I am program coordinator at Westchester Power. I work under Nick. It's been 3 weeks at Westchester Power. I'm very excited. Um, I'm a fresh graduate. I graduated from the College of St. Rose with a degree in cybersecurity and English Spanish translation. I was born in White Plains and I live in Mount Kisco, so I'm a lifelong Westchester County resident, and it's really nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
So you'll be seeing a lot more of him around too, as we're, present in the community doing things over the course of the year. All right. I'm just gonna have this here so I don't have to crane my neck every time and as I go through slides and talk to y'all about the Westchester Power Program and what's been happening since the last time I was in front of you all last year and what we're planning for this year. So we always set the table talking about the reason why we exist as an organization and do this program and all the other work we do. But I think it should be no surprise or mystery that we're facing some urgent challenges here in society. Next slide, please. With the global crisis of climate change, and it's ever present, manifesting itself in different ways all over the world, and something we're facing, regularly here when we talk about particularly heavy downpours, big storms, big weather events, all of that carbon emission that we're emitting into the atmosphere, trapping more heat, increasing how much moisture is being trapped in the atmosphere, and we get more frequent and more severe weather events as a result, especially in our part of the neck of the woods here. So next slide. Oh, sorry, I didn't go that. Next slide again. Sorry about that. This is just, again, demonstrating the visuals of some of the stuff we see here a lot through different parts of town. I actually updated this after I sent the presentation along because I live on Osage Drive and we had huge trees fall down during that big storm in July last year, I think, where all the trees went down in Washini Park and caused a lot of damage as well. So we had Con Ed out, fixing a bunch of things. Their crews, my next door neighbor's cable went out, utility lines, and I know I've seen village crews there dealing with some of the excess debris and stuff. So all that to emphasize the point that these things are going to be more common, occur, regularly, and cost us a lot of physical and health damages along the way. Next slide. And so in that vein, there's more than just that physical damage and, flooding and all of that. There's all the health outcomes that are negatively associated with carbon emissions as we continue down that road. And the folks, particularly in our vulnerable communities who already struggle with societal inequities and deal with these issues at a higher degree, talking about poor air quality and, asthma levels and other things like that, financial burdens related to climate disaster, that's going to continue to exacerbate as we go along. And next slide. Speaking of going along, we can see the trend is not just going to turn around on its own, and global temperatures have continued to increase consistently year to year. So next slide. We do live in a state where we've taken that issue very seriously and have some pretty ambitious and noble goals around transitioning to renewable energy, cutting our carbon emissions, but we're facing a lot of uphill challenges still. Given the increase in energy use year to year, we're expecting emissions still going up, and some of the delays we've had here in the state and nationally, making that transition to clean energy and keeping pace with these goals of 2030, 2040 for cutting emissions and transitioning to renewable energy. So next slide. And then this is just to sort of demonstrate again the aggregate of where these emissions come from in our built environment, transportation, obviously the biggest one there, but residential and commercial energy consumption, big pieces as well. So powering our homes and our work offices and other structures is a big, big piece of the puzzle when it comes to carbon emissions. And that's not maybe the most visible slide, but Con Edison, their renewable energy mix is rather minimal compared to what we need to see in the transition to clean energy and the mitigation of emissions today. So next slide. So that's why Sustainable Westchester exists, to tackle this problem here locally for us, be on the forefront of the solutions, and with the participation and guidance of communities like Austining, taking bold steps in trying to cut our emissions and transition to clean energy. So Sustainable Westchester, for anybody out there who doesn't know, is a nonprofit consortium. Our members are the villages, cities, and towns of Westchester. And we have a leadership board of directors who comprise people within the communities too, from different backgrounds of private, nonprofit, and municipal leadership. And we have staff that's kind of dispersed all over the place. I'm here, like I said, Saul's in Mount Kisco, and we're, top to bottom all Westchester folks pretty much. So we bring a lot of experience and been running this program for quite some time now as well. Next slide. I won't go through all this, but just to kind of drill the point home that Sustainable Westchester is doing a lot of impactful programming with clean energy and the different sort of things you're familiar with what we do already. We partner with folks at all levels of the stakeholder chain of government and the local community folks. We've been trying to drive innovation in the work we do here with, all of the kind of solutions we bring to the table and try to pioneer for folks in our communities and our municipalities. Next slide. So next slide. What is Westchester Power? Of the 44 municipalities, 26 currently participate in this program. So we are the default electricity supply option for roughly 140,000 residential and small business accounts in Westchester, mostly Con Edison, but those communities in the north are NYSEG communities. And community choice aggregation is just the formal name of what this program, Westchester Power, is called in the regulatory realm of things. So next slide. And so, you heard the mayor mention at the start some of the concerns with Con Ed delivery rates, and just to differentiate what this program is and how it, relates to your Con Edison bill and what it's not. This is an electricity supply program. So when we're talking about the rate increases from Con Edison, that's to do with delivery charges. So Con Edison is the utility of record in our area, and then NYSEG in the north. So those delivery charges, you don't have alternative options when it comes to that. They are the folks who are responsible for getting energy delivered to your home reliably, and those delivery charges cover all of their costs for infrastructure maintenance, operational admin stuff, and where they do make their dividends and profit. But on the supply side, where we come into play, consumers have choices, and then you can make decisions about what you want for supply based on your values for renewable energy or how wanting a fixed rate and so on. Next slide. Just in a nutshell, we've been doing this since 2016, bringing together the collective power of our aggregations and our communities to try and go out and leverage that power and get the best rates possible for our customers, for fixed rates, for renewable energy, of course. And so we've offered a few different types of products over the years, but now primarily only offering a 50% renewable and a 100% renewable energy product. Again, fixed rates. And the program, does help us catapult and do other things that benefit in the communities and are available to municipalities to participate in and continue, building those innovative solutions and offerings for folks around clean energy and sustainability. Next slide. It is an opt-out format. So functionally, this is the same as energy supply has always been, whereas you open your Con Ed account, you automatically start getting their energy. But rather than that being the case and you having to make a proactive decision to go with a private company, municipal boards like you all have made us the default option. So it does create more actual optionality within this, but you do have to opt out of this rather than choosing to leave Con Edison as a default supplier for the energy. But it is consumer friendly, unlike a typical private contract that you would have at an individual level. There's no commitment for individuals at that level. They can opt in, opt out as much as they want. There's no fees or penalties associated with that. It's just the functional steps of going through those machinations with the utility. That's really the only part that can hold things up. So, and we do have to, emphasize that savings aren't guaranteed in this program. It's a fixed rate program, and the utility rate is a variable rate. So we cannot predict, and they cannot predict what that rate will be on a month-to-month basis. We can just tell you what our rates will be. And, whatever the Con Ed rate ends up being is going to be determinate, based on market factors for, the energy commodity as we go through time. But there's typically some seasonality to that and some level of predictability, but not really essentially. Next slide. So just for folks, and again, in light of the fact that we have a lot of conversation in the communities these days about the delivery, if you're not sure, if you're in the program or not, this is a visual for anyone online who's there can see hopefully too. The left side of your bill is the breakdown of your supply charges and the right side is delivery. And this would be for electricity on the second page of your bill. If you have a gas service, then those charges would be on the third page, but we do not do gas. So anyway, on the left side, you would have a notation there about being in the program and how to get in contact with us if you were in the program. Otherwise, you would just have some limited line item information about being a Con Ed customer. Next slide. So we summarize the three main benefits of the program as providing clean energy, expanding consumer choice, and capping electricity costs. Next slide. So with respect to the primary goal of cutting emissions, we feel like we've been really successful with that year to year by participation of the community. So 2024, roughly 330,000, 325,000 metric tons of CO2 mitigated through the collective, participation of our renewable energy customers throughout the county. In terms of putting that into some, estimated tangible terms, roughly 76,000 cars taken off the road for a year. 42 million and a half dollars of social cost averted. That's a Department of Environmental Conservation metric that I can talk about if you want, but essentially through the CLCPA, the Climate Act, the Department of Environmental Conservation came up with a way to sort of tangibly, put a dollar to the actions we take today in mitigating future costs caused by climate change in the future. So that's physical, social health costs, et cetera. Or 5.5 million trees planted. And then, just to emphasize again, this is the single biggest action a municipality can take, more than any other things combined. So clean energy communities, other things that you all participate in here, doing light bulbs and all those other kind of campaign things. This single program, has a greater impact than all of those things collectively. Next slide. So again, I touched on this before, but this is basically just more optionality for folks who are in communities that participate in this program. So in the traditional model, you just had the utility, or you could try and go out and find a contract that worked with you with a private ESCO, energy service company. But in this model, again, now you do have us as a default, but it is an option that wouldn't otherwise exist if Austining wasn't participating. That has no, strings or commitments to it. Next slide. And people can always opt out. Like I stated, it's simple. We have several options for doing that. Only the mail option is only an option for the enrollment period, but at any time people can email, call us, or go online and use a self-service form. And no fees, no penalties. Come and go as you like. And if you do opt out of the program, at any point you would remain opted out of the program for the life of the program. Even as we change rates and things, you would never, receive a letter about being pre-enrolled again and needing to opt out. But again, you could choose to opt in again. Next slide. And then, a fixed rate does provide insurance against any spikes. Again, this is just for electricity supply and doesn't cap your costs for delivery or gas, but it is one component of your bill where you won't be subjected to really, volatile spikes within the energy market as you would be on a variable rate. And we've seen that happen, in the past and, may very well be kind of entering a period here with a lot of uncertainty and volatility where a fixed rate does provide that protection of anything that crazy might happen on the market. Next slide. And then there's just a set of additional benefits that come with being in the program and the service we provide. We do a lot of customer support and education. Certainly, we talk to a lot of customers over the phone and are often the ones who are helping them resolve issues that they don't understand with their utility and that the customer service with the utility couldn't help them with. And holding their hand through some of those processes if we don't know the answers right away. Helping them figure out what's going on in their situation, whether it's they've enrolled into a special service plan because they have a heat pump and they've got a delivery program that they tried to sign up for, and then they accidentally got kicked off our program, and they need to figure out, well, was this supposed to happen? Those are the kind of interventions we have, and the level of service, I think, and education we help provide to folks that is pretty unique to our program and our, stature as being a local nonprofit here. We do provide bilingual support in all our programming, and are trying to continually expand the services for all our languages that folks speak in our communities, and diversify the way we're able to reach folks as well. But we do produce a lot of other just general resources and things that are accessible to anyone on our website. Resources how to compare your bill with us versus Con Ed, and just get generally educated about energy in a deeper way, and a lot of other things. And we like to think we're also providing hopefully good support for municipal staff with this program as well, and questions they get, because obviously you all are on the front lines of a lot of this stuff. And so if something's going wrong, whether it's related to us or Con Ed delivery rates or anything else, we are hopefully a resource that folks feel like they can rely on. Next slide. And this program in particular is a foundation for other services. I won't go into them all, but by having started this program and run it for a lot of years now, it's helped us launch a lot of other stuff that's tackling, the emissions problem, the clean energy transition. And we do, work with a lot of households, and, our community in particular, we've done a lot of cool things with community solar, and heat pumps and things at different buildings. So we're doing all kinds of different stuff to engage with communities, provide energy kit and education sessions, and so on and so forth. So next slide. I won't belabor that that much. And we're, taking other feedback we've received seriously, and, so is the state. So really trying to amp up the services we've provided already, but also speaking about sort of in the future tense here. We're going to be doing a lot of robust communication and engagement with communities. So this is just kind of summarizing what the post-award timeframe looks like after we go out and secure new rates for 2025, and the periods and the levels of outreach we are expecting to do minimally. Holding public sessions, holding virtual sessions, trying to find the best ways in physical or electronic form to get information in front of people, so that they're, understanding at least like this program's coming back. Hopefully they know about it at this point, but here's where the details are. Here's how I talk to people. Here's how I, join a session or something like that. And we have started providing monthly reports to municipalities that hopefully you're seeing, just on program progress, how the rates are performing against Con Edison, hopefully providing informational resources about happenings that are relevant to people as well. And hopefully that's providing some value as well in all of this. Next slide. So talking about the program rates and terms, this is just kind of a snapshot of the last few months or last couple months with these current rates. And traditionally, we've only usually put this up here as just like our 50% rate and our 100% rate, but we do want to, emphasize, excuse the apple if it's a little cheesy, but what the apples to apples comparison of sort of the baseline rate that we have, and then also the premium sort of levels of the renewable energy on top of that. So obviously, there's some level of premium at a baseline with renewable energy. And so, the base price here of what we have on these current rates was 11.06. So that's like, what would have been our prior standard product that we used to offer, the dirty fuel. That's what that price would have looked like in this contract if it was a product we offered. And then, that would be akin to the Con Edison rates that you see there. But even so, at least for the last couple months, this winter especially, the 50% rate, which is the default for the village, has performed well. No guarantees month to month if that's going to continue to be the case. But, as in terms of, performing against the price of Con Ed, we've been fortunate on the 50% rate that it's actually done better for a premium product. So that's great. Next slide. Oh, I didn't mention, actually, there's a note that the price is going to reduce in May as well for participants. So there was a lower than expected New York State pass-through charge for consumers. So that is going to get reflected in customers' rates through the end of this contract term through November, starting in May. So that's a 0.09 cents per kilowatt hour reduction. So it's not like huge, but it's something. So it would take the 12.18 rate and make that 12.09 for the 50% default. And this is a snapshot, just kind of the year-to-year historical. There's been ups, there's been downs. Obviously, we covered in great detail last time I was here the situation in 2022 and the conditions of what we were in then with going to market when the war in Ukraine started. And, but on balance, the history of the program, even for a premium product, has shown that it's been pretty price competitive, even against the dirty fuel product of Cotton Edison. And then certainly compared to other renewable energy products on the private market, it's been extremely, competitive. Next slide, please. And then it's always good to remind folks of this, that the assumption is often that everyone is automatically enrolled in the program or eligible, but that's not the case. There's a myriad of situations that would preclude like an automatic pre-enrollment into the program. Folks who are on HEAP or assistance programs and are getting, great savings on their bills, we can't match those savings, so those folks aren't going to be auto-enrolled into this program. And there's other reasons people with private contracts wouldn't take them out of those, people on special, maybe time of use rates and so on and so forth. But in terms of the savings aspects, we do try and get at that with a lot of different stuff we do, like the grid rewards, like community solar, to provide the financial benefit tied to some of this green energy transition that we want to hopefully continue to expand on. Next slide. All right, so I think in the email that we sent, or Dan sent rather, kind of teeing up this conversation, we are looking to, move a little quicker than we have in the past on the contracting schedule, and get folks hopefully committed around the 19th there, as we state, and make a selection on a 50% or 100% default. Few reasons for that. The shoulder months, as they call it, the springtime, is generally the better time to go out to the market and secure rates. That's when prices on the real-time market are the lowest, and it seems to reflect also in the futures prices when you go out and try to buy in the lower cost months. And then I mentioned or alluded to the sort of semi-unpredictable elements of the world we live in now, and you don't know what kind of decisions around tariffs or other stuff might throw markets into bits of volatility. We got a little taste of that when they were on for a minute and then back off. So having a little bit more runway just to navigate that, try and time things. You can't time things, but try and pick an appropriate time to actually go and do that bid and do all this more extended outreach we plan to do are all sort of reasons we want to try and, be more proactive about getting to contract bid sooner rather than later, so we can, navigate all of that as smoothly as possible. I'm not going to talk about the delivery charges anymore, but there is something to be said about, having the fixed rate as a security thing, even though delivery is not supply. But, I think it's demonstrating some tangible benefit these days. Next slide. I think that was all I had on that. So thanks for bearing with me if that was a little bit too revisionary for folks who have heard this presentation a time or two before, but appreciate the time and definitely eager to answer any questions you'll have.
Okay. Thank you. I think there are questions. I'm going to start to my left here.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, sorry.
So still waiting to see that check in the mail. Rebate? No. Thank you.
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yeah,
for
I know, and you've heard it a few times already. I know. So, you're talking about your grid reward check for the grid rewards? Oh, any check? Hey, me and you both.
Appreciate it. Bear with me a little bit on some of the questions because I'm the new guy.
Yeah, I'm well aware. Yeah, no worries.
So I think my understanding is like the way it works is like basically you're buying renewable energy credits that kind of that are equivalent to the amount of energy that's used within this municipality. Kind of how it works.
Yeah, so for the program, anybody who's on our 50% or 100%, we would ensure that the equivalent amount of megawatt hour energy to represent that renewable energy total is purchased at the end of the year, and everyone's
Got it.
made.
Okay. I just want to make sense. So
Oh yeah.
can you talk a little bit about like where you see this rec market going over the next 18 months, and then is that what's really driving the accelerated timeline? And then associated with that is kind of like what is it specifically about the 19th that what is something triggered on the 19th that kind of is driving that timing?
Yeah, so happy to answer both those questions. So the rec aspect is not really the more consequential part of the price. So it's the underlying supply, because the recs are certificates that are matching what the actual usage is. So there's still being energy supply being bought, you know, underneath that. So that's where you know, the big price determinant is trying to time, or I keep saying time, trying to go out strategically and, you know, find a way to get the best price possible for that underlying energy price, which is determinate based on the larger scope of the energy market pricing. So no, the rec prices are actually, they are a part of it. You could probably, if we were to go back and look at that, you'd see the delta of what that additive cost is between the basic, you know, supply and then the rec underneath that. But yeah, the rec prices, I don't expect to be shooting up, if anything going down maybe this year. So that premium going down maybe a little bit. We'll see. But yeah, really the key thing is trying and get that base price as
Got it.
best
So
as possible.
so the volatility in that market is what's driving your desire to lock a base in for the extended amount of period.
Yeah, that's right.
So
So
can
the
you-
general energy market, you know, conditions and pricing and stuff and volatility is why we're trying to go be proactive and have the space to where in the past, you know, Mayor and other trustees you've seen, we've been kind of driven by our compliance schedule and needing to make decisions based around that. So by being more proactive, we can, you know, avoid those constraints and pressures and be, you know, maybe feeling forced to do things, but also now be in a better time of the year and have runway between, you know, all of that. So we're really being strategic and thoughtful about the time to go to bid and when that's going to be hopefully best.
Okay. So, but so that you didn't answer the question. Is there anything specific about the 19th?
Oh, the 19th, sorry. No, that was something, you know, we planned out a schedule around this before we went out to everybody. So that was the target date we had, just based on hopefully feeling like we had enough time to, you know, talk to everybody at this level if we needed to. And, you know, there's 23 communities as a part of your aggregation. And then we have 4 others. That's not right. 3 others also who participate in this program, but separately. And so, you know, that being just a date we had in mind to try and then, you know, have enough time to put out an RFP, because there's parts of that process that are a part of this as well, and then hold that solicitation or be ready to hold that solicitation, you know, in the relative time frame that we hope for, all things being equal and it being the spring still, and, you know,
Okay.
kind of things. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. What happens if you put out an RFP and the price comes back really, really high?
So we do, you know, even now and before today, weeks now, we solicit regular indicatives from the general participants in these solicitations to get a sense of, you know, what their pricing people are saying costs are out there. So again, today, last week, week before, doesn't mean anything about next month. But yeah, it's right now we're hopeful that we can, you know, come in at around the pricing we're now, or hopefully, of course, a reduction would be great, but it's pretty speculative to say at this point, you know, what May 1st is going to say for pricing. So, you know, the most recent ones that we received, the pricing was coming in a little bit higher than where we're at right now. And that's, again, you know, a function of the timing. The market drove up in the last month. So that has affected what the futures outlook is now. And now we're kind of coming back down. But again, this is all a pretty fluid thing, hence wanting to have some, you know, cushion to try and navigate that as we go and do this next solicitation.
Got it. Understand. And I guess for me, like one of the big, and the reason I'm asking a bunch of this, because I'm really struggling to understand
Yeah.
like basically entering into a purchase contract that's at this point 20 months out at an undefined price. Because at least the draft that I saw was, you know, you've got a blank price, so you're not going to fill that in just yet. Right.
Right. Yeah. We won't know the
So-
price until we go and do the actual bid and
But you're
award a
still
contract.
asking for the commitment. And then,
Yeah.
you know, there's also, when I read through the contract, it looks like the risk reduction mechanisms are in there, i.e. for like anything that's a regulatory event, or, I mean, there's a clause in there which talks about, you know, sustainable up or down, right? In the price of market that gets passed through, a regulatory event gets passed through.
Yeah.
Like, so it seems like there's no cap
So,
But, you know,
oh, sorry.
so this is where, like, just I'm trying to understand,
Yeah,
because, you know, from that perspective.
sure.
Right? So if you could talk a little bit about that, that
Yeah, absolutely. So actually the reduction we're going to see here in May is a good example of that regulatory event working in our benefit. So the reason that it exists in there is because there are certain costs that are passed down to consumers, ratepayers, that we aren't going to know for 2026 when we go out and do a bid in 2025. So the supplier still wants to price that into the bid. All the suppliers want to price that into the bids they give us. And so, you know, rather than, so they have the right, of course, if they have to raise the price, they have to raise the price, but we build in, you know, what we think is good cushion. And we did this year clearly because we have a reduction, so that we're going to be having a price reduction when those prices do come to fruition. And those prices are related to like transmission projects to improve the grid and reliability and access to, you know, energy supplies and so on, and some of our clean energy standard stuff, things that just get passed down to everybody. They're not exclusive to us, just so everyone knows. But yeah, so that's why that's in there, is because, you know, we have to be able to adjust for that. It's a requirement. It's New York State, and you know, you can fix a price based on the commodity itself, but you can't predict what the cost of something that the state's going to tell you you have to charge every consumer is, you know, before you get to that point. So that's why that's in there. And like I said, the mechanism this year was enacted so that we could do a price reduction and not raise the price because there was some cushion built into that.
I understand, but I think the regulatory environment is, you know, just things are very different, right? I think it's, you know, things
Yeah.
are changing.
Well, it's in New York State regulations. Yeah. So this is specifically
But I
like,
think stuff will end up trickling. Whatever, that's
Yeah.
totally separate conversation.
yeah, happy to break that down with you, you know, individually and what we
So
could
last two questions for
Yeah.
you, right? What was the opt-out rate in Ossining?
on this current contract.
Yep.
Ooh, I don't know offhand. I can follow up with you. Yeah. The opt-out rate for I'm gonna guess it was 5% or less, but I'll circle back with you on that. Yeah. I have the internet. I'm connected. I might be able to pull that in a second. But yeah, keep asking your questions.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then, that's it for now. Look my notes and see if there's something else I forgot. I've asked. So you understand for me, like,
Yeah.
where what I'm trying to reconcile is,
Yeah.
from a business standpoint, like if I'm buying something, I generally enter into a purchase contract 20 months out without knowing what the price is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're asking us.
Well, yeah, and this would apply to any, again, like if you're an individual and you're going to a private company today and saying like, okay, I'd like the clean choice, I'd like the 15-cent, whatever here, they would still be, you know, you would still be individually subjected to all those things the same way. And it's just no avoiding it for any of us. And then just to go back to the opt-out rate again, I'll say like, you know, we're now in our, I don't know, fifth contract or something doing this since 2016. So there's been a lot of opting out, you know, along the way now. So folks, you know, who are being brought back into the program, the new rate, hopefully, you know, again, people have a pretty good awareness about the program here and so on. So it's, you know, not like, again, everyone's being refreshed into the program every time, even though they opted out in the past or something like that.
It'd be helpful if you could get back to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
What that rate is.
Okay, going to my right.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez.
Welcome, Saul. So I want to build on my colleague's comment. This was a kind of question that I had in the past as I was initially trying to make sense of this. And for me, ultimately, what was clarifying was one part of the equation is looking at the numbers. And there's a slide that you had up there that is also linked in the agenda for folks that want to go back that shows historically year by year comparing Con Ed, Westchester Power, et cetera. So you can get a sense of the comparison. And the conversation got a little bit awkward because there was a period where it was like, hey, this is good for the environment and it's cheaper. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't cheaper. And so there was a conversation of what do you value? And at this point, things are evening out a little bit. That was one of our concerns coming into this year. Is the trend going to continue moving in the wrong direction, or it will be moving in the right direction? Happy to hear that things are moving more in the right direction, because ultimately in front of us is an economic decision, but then also a values decision around sustainability and other things that we care about. This is a decision that we can make as a municipality that has a very large impact in terms of the environment. And a question is, are we willing to pay a little bit of a premium in order for that to come into fruition? In the past, our decision has been yes. For me so far, I still am yes, as long as those numbers aren't totally out of whack. But I think that my colleagues' instincts, as usual, are on point. My question for you, Nick, to start is around communications, because one of the things we've discussed in the past is around some of the confusion that people have, some of the complaints. So I'm curious to hear any updates in the last year about new efforts, new results with respect to communications.
Yeah. Appreciate everything you just said there for one thing. So, and definitely understand Trustee Yost's concerns in that realm. It's something relevant to all of us, especially these days. So, yeah. And so in the communication front, I think you see what we have planned here, in the upcoming period. Definitely more boots on the ground. We do have a Saul now who can help, and that's going to be a large part of his role in terms of doing outreach and such. And we do a community-wide effort and collective effort as an organization in a lot of ways. But I'll say we have an extensive amount of just future planned in-person, virtual, and different kinds of physical electronic things, as I mentioned, that we plan to do. Since then, we've been doing the monthly reports, as I mentioned, and hopefully those are, hitting your all's inboxes and are something you're able to share out with communities so they have transparency month to month on what that pricing performance is looking like. We've done some outreach sessions, particularly when we were at that opt-out period, like we talked about and emphasized back when these current rates were going into effect. So held virtual sessions, English, Spanish, did in-person sessions at the library, had a decent amount of turnout for a Spanish session with help from Neighbors Link and getting folks there. And so we've tried, mostly been the traditional methods, but flooding the zone a little bit more with those same things. But as we go forward here, trying to see about, what the different approaches might be, I don't know what the timing on water bills and stuff are, putting things into people's mailings like that, putting up more physical stuff, finding ways to get into maybe the more of the digital spaces and ads that maybe people see at the hyper local level that we don't, or haven't typically done. So a lot of thought, and hopefully, again, want to engage with folks, at the local level who maybe know their communities best to help us think about the right approach for each community, because it will be different for each one of them. So yeah, but I mean, in the interim, it's in the last few months since we've launched this contract, it's been mostly virtual sessions and trying to do the same kind of reach out, sending notices through Neighbors Link like we did for the in-person session in this community. And yeah, that's been sort of the summation of it all in the last few months.
That's helpful. You said something in your presentation that stuck with me that I'd like to emphasize as you're talking to folks in the community. I certainly will be echoing it because I found it helpful. You talked about the Con Ed bill that folks look at, and the left versus right side of the bill. How the left side is, it talks about here the electricity charges, the right side is delivery charges. And I found that to be very helpful, particularly since I have a memory of an uncle one time took me out for my birthday, and when we were out to dinner, he says, only look at the left side of the menu, meaning like only look at what the food is, not on the right side that says what the prices are. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about that left versus right side. I was, okay. That's the same thing. People think about it spatially. So if you just help people say, hey, this is really focusing on lowering the left side of the bill. I know you're upset about the right side. Let's talk to the people in government that we can to lower that right side, but this is more focused on the left side. I think that would also help to clarify what this is and what this is not.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think there's best ways of approaching that, I didn't mention in the answer to the last question you had, but a lot of the different resources we've developed in terms of videos, walking people through how to compare their, charges to Con Ed and, understanding the different components of their bill and all those things we have developed, on our website, but, disseminating that and getting it in hands and getting people in front of it is the key challenge, right? So.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Yep.
Dana, anything?
No, I just have a quick question. So the energy you're supplying comes from wind, solar, and And,
Hydropower
Hydropower,
traditionally through our
okay.
program and pretty much just hydropower at this point to this point.
oh, really? Is
Yeah.
it for
In the
Can-
past, when we didn't strictly buy New York State, then we did have wind and solar recs built into that national recs, but with the changes and some of
Oh,
those.
so you have to strictly buy New York
We
State
have to buy New
power.
York State, yeah, energy to
So
call
where is it
renewable energy.
produced? Upstate?
Yeah, there's tons of run of water hydro facilities.
Not Canada.
No, it's New
So
York
we're not
State.
going to be dealing with issues that some folks in the Midwest may if there are tariffs on Canadian energy.
So down this far, we don't get energy supply from Canada, but not to say there's not possible to be some ripple effect if there was a tariff put on that affected, people in the North State, and not affecting us, it very could happen, because it is a big dynamic organism. It's not just, necessarily we're in this zone. Nothing bad happens here. Yeah.
So you're basically negotiating with suppliers, a handful of basically people with dams, right?
Well, so those are the rec. I mean, the rec prices are one thing. The suppliers, the way we functionally go out and secure these contracts is we put out an RFP, and then these companies, energy service companies who are interested in competing, participate, and that can be in the form of a reverse auction where they're in a live environment virtually and they're bidding each other down until someone gives up. Or, some instances we've done a blind bid where they're submitting those things and we're going through rounds of blind submissions. But essentially, they're the ones who are, competing against each other, and that's going to include the underlying price. That's going to include the price of the recs. They have their own relationships with different producers and so on. So
Sorry, when you say the RECs,
the renewable energy certificates. Yeah.
Okay.
So the hydropower.
okay.
Yeah. So all of that's going to be wrapped into the pricing that these folks are submitting and, bidding out for the contracts. So yeah, it's kind of all wrapped in within whatever the supplier thinks that they can offer.
So it's all hydro now. But you plan to try and pursue wind and solar as a source?
That's definitely where we want to go. So not to get maybe too into the weeds of the New York energy market and the renewable energy certificates, but the class or the tier of RECs we've bought to this point are these voluntary RECs that are legacy hydropower facilities. So they're from things that have been built for some time, and it goes towards keeping those operations going and keeping our renewable energy credits in state. But there are sort of a higher class called Tier 1 RECs that we want to buy that have just recently become available to voluntary buyers like us, where before it was solely like load serving entities like Con Ed who could buy these and had to buy these RECs. So with that, buying the Tier 1, we get the additionality claims. We're really driving the energy market development forward and putting money towards further development and stuff. So that is definitely like one growth area where we want to get to, in addition to doing, more localized kind of things like actually having generation built within our, subgrid here, and having direct energy supply maybe from renewable sources, and getting to that, having bilateral, power purchase agreements with developers for that, at the local level at some point. These are different things we've envisioned and want to do over time, and not sure when we'll get there, but hopefully soon, and continuing with the program and keeping the support going in general, though, for the renewable energy market here in New York is important to keep progressing towards that goal.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Great. So I usually do the wrap up, but actually all my questions asked, answered. So thanks. I would just say that asked for it in the past, appreciated going forward. You have a very generic presentation. It doesn't actually speak to arsoning. And so we've asked like for addendum that has trends over 3 years. And that you have many municipalities. Lovely presentation that explains to the public a whole bunch of things, but I don't know what $50 million or $50 million, whatever. So I'd be more interested in arsoning, and I think we've been together long enough that should be.
Sure. Yeah. And of course,
Across
I'll
the
follow.
metrics that you present.
Yeah, and I'll of course follow up with y'all with those specific opt-out details and anything else that you think is, within the monthly report. You can see sort of emissions metrics and those kinds of things specific to each municipality. But happy to, if it's the opt-out, whatever kind of hyper specific things to auditing. Obviously, I'm very
Well,
willing
you
to.
present stuff
Yeah.
all of it should be also an addendum to those says, and this is what the trend looks like in Ossining.
Fair enough.
That
Yeah.
way, because we're actually voting on behalf of a
Yeah.
very specific issue.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some, we're up to
Administrative-
administrative reports, is that right?
Yes, Village Manager Karen Dottori.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So not only are we introducing the next second season of Project Mover, but we'll also be piloting the New York State's first e-bike incentive program. So this initiative provides significant discounts for low-income residents to help bridge the cost of e-bike ownership, making affordable and clean transportation accessible to those who need it most. This will initially be launching in the village of Ossining, and the pilot program will offer a point-of-sale voucher covering $1,000 off the cost of select e-bikes, along with critical safety equipment. Following insights gained from the pilot program aims to expand the program aims to expand to select neighboring communities in Westchester County, and eligible e-bikes through the program must be purchased from a participating local e-bike retailer and meet all state and local regulations on consumer e-bike safety. We'll have a lot of details on this that you can get online through sharedmobility.org, but we'll also be pushing out information through our social media and on our website as well, so that the public is, if the public's interested, they can find out more about this. And eligible applicants will be chosen at random this spring. So we will, more on that to come. Also, some exciting news. India Brook Water Treatment Plant has been awarded the Project of the Year Award for Innovation in Water Treatment and Design by the New York section of the American Water Works Association. And the reason we won this is because they were very impressed by the fact that Ossining was able to adapt mid-project by incorporating ultraviolet technology. And you guys might remember this a while back when we had the MIB issues and the algae issues, and that was a switch. We had to change the plans of the new plan to incorporate the ultraviolet technology to address unexpected water quality challenges happening through the algae blooms. But this gave us high marks on innovation, leadership, and a strong commitment to public health. The successful collaboration between the village, the design team, the contractors exemplifies a project excellence in the water industry. So in April, Paul Fraioli, Andy Teese, and I, along with other staff from the water department, will be going up to the New York Water Works Association event in Saratoga to receive the award. And last but not least, all of those sensitive but yet obsolete documents can be shredded on April 5th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the community center. The county's mobile shredder will be there for all your shredding needs.
Thank you. Corporation Counsel, Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Sue. Good evening, folks. A few changes to parking regulations. I don't think, Chief, I'm stepping on your toes for this one. Folks, outside of OVAC headquarters, there are now 4 dedicated parking spaces for emergency vehicles only. That is in effect now. In addition, effective April the 14th, so in a little under a month, there will be a new stop sign, which will be at Hudson Street, traveling south at its intersection with Liberty Street. So that will be going in there. We've also been putting in a few handicap spots over the past couple of weeks, but the OVAC one, I believe it was unbagged today. So folks should be made aware of that, if you park in any of those spaces in front of OVAC and you are not a designated emergency vehicle, you will be ticketed. In addition, the building department has made phenomenal strides in terms of dealing with violations, particularly safety and security violations in many buildings. One of the issues that we have is that we often find ourselves putting up stop work orders, putting up placards to say either the building is uninhabitable, the building needs to be vacated, or obviously stop work is obviously what that means. What the building officials will begin to do is use an additional section of the village code, which is 92-25A, that was adopted by the board last year, which will allow additional penalties to be imposed for violating stop work orders, for violating placards. Basically, if you have a placard that says that your unit or your building is uninhabitable and you tear that down and you basically go into the building, you can be fined anywhere between $500 and $16,000, depending upon the particular violation. In addition, there can be civil penalties. And most importantly, depending on the case, you can also sustain a loss of twice the profit that you earned from that particular unit or illegality. Again, we do have a number of property owners who seem to think that it's just a piece of paper, so what? We can tear it down and go into the building. They should be made aware, and the building department people who make them aware, that they will be subjected to new violations. These will be violations that will be imposed on a daily basis. Property owners should be aware that the village recently received a judgment in the amount of $176,000 with regard to property, where there were multiple violations over a lengthy period of time. We have another property where we are asking for violations that have been going on now for about 669 days. So simply put, we're keeping track of this. We have been successful in court in getting some large fines. That is thanks to the really important work of the building department and the police department that often accompanies the building inspectors to many of the times where we have issues in some of these buildings. But again, if you have a stop work order, it's important that you stop work, because if you do not, your fines will add up. Each day you violate the stop work order is a separate and distinct violation, and it will start to count against you, and it will run. And as I said, the village can also seek civil penalties and seek the profits to essentially claw back what you earned from the time that you were illegally doing your work or illegally letting people use your property. So, word to the wise, follow what the building department is telling you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Police Chief Aaron Zimmerman.
Good evening. Also, new stop sign that was unveiled not too long ago. State Street at Academy, slowing things down in front of the Children's Center. Kind of in that same vein, a little bit of something that we've been getting more questions about, the initiative that's been countywide in a lot of school districts with the school bus camera tickets. We've had an influx of inquiries about them and how they work. So, public service announcement. It's a county initiative that's right now in about 11 school districts throughout Westchester County, where school buses in those districts are equipped with cameras monitoring when the red lights are flashing and the extended stop arm is activated when passengers are actively loading or unloading off the bus, and you pass the school bus, which you shouldn't do, where this camera takes a picture of your license plate, and in very similar fashion to a red light camera that are in some towns and villages and cities, where if you pass a steady red light, the camera snaps a picture of your license plate and you get a present in the mail. This gift that you will receive, courtesy of Westchester County, is a $250 civil fine. There are no points attached to that ticket because it follows the registered owner of the vehicle, not the operator. So it's up to the RO of that vehicle to go seek compensation if they were not the ones driving the car from whoever was driving it. That's very different from a UTT or a regular standard traffic ticket that you might get from a police officer, which is a moving violation, which follows the driver of the car not the registered owner. And that ticket also starts at $250 plus any court surcharges that are attached to that, plus 5 points on your license if you're found guilty in the court. So they're mutually exclusive tickets. One's a civil fine. One is attached to your driver's license, which is not a civil fine. And one has points and one does not. So just to clear up any questions on that for anyone who's wondering, there is quite a distinction between the two, but the end result is the same. Don't pass a school bus with its red lights flashing. Pretty simple. Keep the kids safe. You know, not my fault if you woke up a little late for work and you want to pass a school bus to make up the time. So get a parting gift. So please be mindful of that. And we don't want to hurt any kids out there. I mean, it's there for a reason. That, of course, unless the bus driver waves you on, or if there's a police officer there directing traffic, can also wave you on past that. And, you know, on the civil fine end of it with the tickets, they are reviewed by a law enforcement agency, you know, to make sure that any of that isn't going on. So hope that clears up any confusion, and drive safely.
Thank you, Chief. Just so I understand, so this is a county initiative. Where is it, where are these tickets adjudicated?
I believe the tickets, I don't quite know. I think the tickets are returned to the town of issuance. So if it was in Ossining is a participating district. So they would be returned to, I believe, the Ossining court. I honestly don't know, but that's what I'm assuming.
Okay, and so you have 11 district. I assume it's like a pilot, or is it just that only 11 districts wanted it? I mean, you know anything about this program?
Well, there are 11 districts got on board in the early stages. This was only in October of 24.
Okay,
So it's a fairly new program. I think maybe a district or two has jumped on since then. But in its inception, it was 11 school districts in Westchester County, Ossining being one of them.
okay. And this is not a village budget issue, right? I know Dale's on. This is a
No,
school
even
district
no, no, no,
initiative.
no. Even the municipalities that are taking part in this, we don't own the school buses, neither does the district. We lease them from the bus company.
Right.
And the program was designed to be completely non-burdened by the taxpayer. It's all through grant funding and things like that, where these, the owners of the school buses are outfitting buses
Oh,
with
that's
these
right. Now I remember this.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Great. Okay.
13 cameras on each bus. It's a lot.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, organizational announcements. Announcements must be event-related only and shall be no longer than 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone here in our audience that would like to talk about an event? Is there anyone online that would like to raise their virtual hand and talk about an event? Moving on. Public comment on agenda items. Visitors are accorded a 4-minute opportunity to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda. Is there anyone here that wishes to talk about an item on the agenda? Seeing no one here, is there anyone online that wishes to raise their virtual hand? Seeing no one. Visitor recognition. Visitors are accorded a 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda but of relevance to the common good of the village. Okay, would you please state your name and address when you come up? Thank you.
Good evening. Jorge B. Hernandez, RQ Architecture, 100 Second Boulevard, Aslan, New York. We are currently doing work on 6163 Crown Avenue, and that is the old Caruso Deli. The new owner restoring that. We're in front of the planning board and we're doing work. And due to the location of the parking, which is about 15 feet, 16 feet below the street level, we've been having, it's technical and structurally impractical to have the parking, the wheelchair accessibility from the lower level. And exploring the different alternatives with the planning board, the idea was to have a one of the parking spaces along Crown Avenue dedicated to be in wheelchair accessible parking space.
Okay, so why are you here?
Good evening. As Mr. Hernandez mentioned, this is something that's before the land use boards currently. This is something that, the planning board is not happy with the arrangement. So they kicked it to the manager's office. The manager, upon recommendation from technical staff, is also not satisfied. So Mr. Hernandez asked if he could come and approach the board.
okay.
Joe Augustinelli is also online if we could bring him over, because this is something he's the subject matter expert in and can sort of shed a little bit more light.
Sure. Joe, do you want to shed some light on this? Hi, Joe. See you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So yes, this is a renovation project that's been brought to the building department, and it was referred over to the planning board for new site plan approval. Part of the site plan approval requires that according to New York State's uniform code, which is based off of ADA compliance, that you have to have one handicap parking space for the first 25 parking spaces, and you also have to have a handicap wheelchair aisle access next to that parking space. And what was proposed originally by Mr. Hernandez was to provide a parking space for handicap in the back of the property, but there was some concerns when our consultants were reviewing it that there's not really access once you park there to enter the building from the back. Because there's a big slope, and I believe there's a staircase, which obviously if someone's in a wheelchair would not be able to, get into the building through a staircase. So I think the second proposal was originally was to put a parking space in the front of the property, but there would be no space to put a wheelchair access aisle. So I believe what Mr. Hernandez is proposing now is for a parking space for handicap accessibility on the street in front of the building. The only issue with that, for the purpose of the state code, is the New York State Uniform Code mandates to have these requirements such as the handicap parking on the off street on the lot itself. So even if the village would, what the intention is to ask for a parking space in the street, it would still require to get some type of variance from the state of New York for not providing a parking space on the property itself. And that is a little bit difficult to do because the state, obviously, their regulations are based off of ADA federal requirements. And they usually don't like to give out any type of variances that are going to, prohibit ADA compliance to be provided on the property. I would think possibly it would be entertained if they had to get a variance if the parking space that was in the villages in the street was specifically allocated for that building. I've had discussion with Stuart Kahan about it, and I believe that the village does not do that. They would not have a parking space that would be specifically allocated for use by one tenant or one building. It would be anybody would be able to use it if it was granted, which would not solve the issue with the handicap accessibility for that particular property. And Stuart can kind of elaborate on that, but I believe that is the case. So,
Okay, thank you. All righty. You want to comment as well?
No, I think Joe said it all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Well, one of my questions was, would it be solely for that business? And the answer is yes, right?
Business, it's residence, isn't it?
Well, it's two,
It would be assigned to
Attached.
that property specifically, which is mixed use.
the one on the right.
It's one project, so
Right.
6163. And there's a restaurant component, an office component, and then residential. But basically what Joe and Stuart are saying is This parking spot would be dedicated to only folks who are using that building, as opposed to just an ADA spot that can be used by anyone who lives in the neighborhood. This would be sort of the first of its kind, because it's basically privatizing a public parking space.
And that's the only option? There really is no place on the property?
No, that is not the only option. That is the only option that Mr. Hernandez is bringing forth. There are many options. They could build fewer apartments. That would reduce the number of parking. That building was bought. There has been no change. Nobody changed anything. That slope has been there. ADA has been around since I was a child. There are many options for architects and engineers to do things. I think the planning board actually, from my perspective, probably studied this a lot. When people buy property, they know exactly what they're doing. They're architects and engineers, and their job is actually to make it work. If it doesn't work, there are lots of options like build fewer apartments. He's requiring that every inch be used for multiple apartments. You have fewer apartments, for example. So that's actually the role here, not the role of the village.
Are there apartments
to do
being
that.
added on?
No, he's building, it's a
Oh.
building, so they're going to build whatever the site plan does. They might have
No,
a site plan.
No, just to clarify, we're not changing if the buildings are remaining.
I know that,
Oh, okay.
but the
it's
job is.
Existing,
I'm sorry.
non-conforming. Yeah.
Right.
It's
It's-
existing.
But the building we're talking about is the residential build.
It used to be a
Both.
two-family house. And because
Right.
of the
And you
zoning,
can't get in from the back?
no.
They
You
would
do it
have
through
to
a
figure
stair.
out how to create a ramp. Would have to figure that out. Argument is, well, we can't figure it out. The answer might be, yes, you can. Figure it out. We're not architects and engineers. That's why we have a planning board. That's why the planning board said, we're not happy with it. Am I hearing that right?
Not quite. This-
Okay.
What we're proposing, and we have discussions with Joe and the code, New York State Code, is that there is a discussion about feasibility, practical and feasibility. So in that case, we will need about over 200 feet of ramp, which the code says if it's not feasible, you have to provide to the extent that is most allowed. So what we're trying to find is explore all the different options that we have. So this is one of the options. If the village doesn't feel that this is the right option, this is another step that we're taking and trying to provide wheelchair accessibility.
If I can just add one more thing,
Sure.
and I don't mean to be contrarian, but I think one of the comments from the technical experts was it hasn't yet been proven to the planning board that the back does not work. We
Right,
see
we
that,
get
that
that,
there's a
yeah.
path. We don't see what the rise and run is. So that was something that they had asked be included in the next iteration.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're being asked, make exception. I'm not comfortable. I mean, that's why we have a planning board, frankly.
Okay.
If they're uncomfortable, for me, I'm uncomfortable, and that's the way it go. We have a bunch of old buildings, people buy them. I mean, I love the fact that there's an opportunity for a building that's been left vacant, but there was a building with a viable business for a long time. Their owners left it vacant, but it was viable and it worked. I don't know what other people think, because this is not a conversation.
Well, it doesn't set a very good precedent. I just don't think it's a precedent you'd want to set.
No, that's exactly correct. And that street ain't so safe either if there's somebody who needs to move wheelchairs around and open the door while people are driving by. That said, for me, I'm going with the planning. Their discomfort, their request for a little bit more work. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry. There you go. Go ahead.
So two questions, and I haven't read through all of the planning stuff, right? How many units are currently in those buildings, and how many are you proposing in the current request?
There, 61 used to be a deli, which is going to be a restaurant, and 2 apartments. So that's what is going to stay. 63 is the one reason that we are planning. There used to be a 2-family house, which is not allowed once it was abandoned. So now we're converting that into an office with 2 apartments.
Got it. And then, okay, but that requires the handicap spot because it's an apartment.
Right.
ADA
There is
accessible. Understand that. So
just to clarify something, there are 2 types of accessibility, and the code is very clear on that, and the ADA is very clear. It's wheelchair accessibility and accessibility for other types of disabilities. The issue that we are having is with the wheelchair
Right.
accessibility.
Understand. Yep, so
Yeah, we
got it.
got that.
So my next question, this is a bit of a technical question, maybe for you, Joe. If and let me be clear, I am not advocating for the parking spot on the street, right? But my question is, if there is a handicap spot on the street, does that then also require like an extra curb cut so that somebody can get from the street onto the sidewalk as well?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
would have to be some provisions made to allow somebody with a wheelchair to be able to access and get up onto the sidewalk and into the building.
And it's only for them building. It would have to prevent others like the library and
Yeah,
all the other
yeah,
stuff. I mean, this is,
Yeah,
Huh?
okay, that's helpful. That's what I assumed,
Okay.
but I just wanted to double check. It
Mention
just
that.
feels like it. Yeah, my inclination is that this, the experts have taken a pass at it a couple of times, and I don't see I'm not seeing a significant reason to do anything contrary to.
Bob, comments, questions, or nothing, or none?
No, I agree with you guys.
You too? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
you got, Maddie, you're going back with the answers? I know it's being recorded, and Stuart? Okay.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in the visitor recognition?
I don't know how many people are
Okay.
on.
Is there anybody online that wishes to speak? Okay, moving on. Village Board resolutions, approval of minutes. March 5th, 2025. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the March 5th, 2025 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes, March 12th, 2025 special meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the March 12th, 2025 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of voucher detail report, March 19th, 2025. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated March 19th, 2025 in the amount of $1,816,749.03. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agreement with LexisNexis. Resolved that following review of Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with LexisNexis for a 3-year term commencing July 1st, 2025 at $497 per month, year 1, $522 a month, year 2, and $548 a month, year 3. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Changes to the 2025 fee schedule. Resolved that the Village of Austining 2025 fee schedule is revolved to include the following fees effective March 13th, 2025. Outdoor dining to be approved for space a parklet, Village Code. The 2025 fee will be $500 per parking spot per season. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any comments? I have a question. March 13th versus today, or
Oh, should we?
Reason for that is that we've been sending the applications out, so we wanted to have the.
you're going back
wanted
to
it at
that?
that point.
Okay. And it's clear you think that the season, that we don't have to state the months of those seasons, it's just saying seasons for the year is
No,
enough?
I don't believe you need to. It's in the application form.
It's all in the
Okay,
application.
got it. Thank you for that clarification.
All in favor?
Aye.
Retain special counsel. Resolve the following review of Corporation Council. The village manager is authorized to sign a retainer agreement with Hodge, Walsh, and Burke, 55 Church Street, Suite 211, White Plains, New York, to represent the village in certain property damage claims. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in
Motion.
favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Anybody opposed? Everybody
No,
said
I
okay?
think everybody said aye.
Thank you. Call for a public hearing, local law 2025, entitled Local Law Amending Chapter 270 Zoning for the Village of Austining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on April 2nd, 2025, hard to believe, at the Birdside Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Austining, New York, to consider a proposed local law 2025 entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 270 Zoning for the Village of Austining Code, and be it further resolved that the proposed local law adds a new section 270-28.1, authorizing a moratorium on certain developments in the RDD Riverfront Development District and SP-N Station Plaza North zoning districts, and be it further resolved of the members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location, and be it further resolved that those members of the public requiring a reasonable accommodation to participate in the public hearing due to the person's disability shall notify Corporation Council no later than 7 days in advance of the public hearing at kahan@villageofaustinyny.gov to afford the village significant time to provide a reasonable accommodation, and be it further resolved that those members of the public who want to attend or participate in the public hearing remotely, access will be available via Zoom platform, and be it further resolved that any comments regarding the proposed law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at bot@villageofaustinyny.gov. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. This is a vote just for a public hearing on
Right,
this matter,
just-
just so the public understands that we're not voting on the matter, but on a public hearing for the matter.
All in favor?
I
Did
said
you get
aye,
that?
sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I
That's
made a
okay.
comment
Yeah, I know.
afterwards.
That's all right. Finance, establish the 2025 Fire Chief Vehicle Capital Project from 2024 General Fund Balance. Whereas the Village of Ossining wishes to establish a capital project for one fire chief vehicle, which was presented as part of the Village 2025 Capital Plan and designated to be financed by accumulated and available surplus fund balance from December 31st, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved, the adopted budget and the general fund will be modified in 2024 to appropriate unexpended appropriations and to accumulated and available fund balance for the 2025 capital plan items aggravating $95,000, and that the capital project and capital project budget are established thereof. And all the changes in the capital project and the funding is all available on the web page or on the bulletin board at the clerk's office. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? Dale, you're on the phone. Going forward, I really want a count of hybrids and et cetera. I was supposed to meet with Corporation Council, which I couldn't meet. I was told we're at about 60% on our fleet. The fleet includes lots of different vehicles. To be hybrid, electric, I think is a challenge. And I thank Trustee White for also sending me information about recent developments at Ford, one of the main contractors, and the inavailability of certain trucks. But just so everybody notes, from my perspective, we're not heading in the right direction here. We're heading in the wrong direction from an environmental point of view. I understand the issues this year, but we're not going to keep automatically getting fleets and cars for folks without understanding. After all the time we spend on the environment, I don't think we should be going backwards on this stuff. So I'm okay with this. But Dale, you're sort of the keeper of information, and Stuart, you have the keeper of the actual cars, fleets, et cetera, which I will meet with you most likely next week, because this week, after today's agenda was, got a little full again. Appreciate that. Those were just my comments. I don't think, does anybody have questions or anything? Okay, Sue?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Appointment of Environmental Advisory Council. Resolved that the Board of Trustee appoints Jennifer Ramirez as a member of the Environmental Advisory Council for a term expiring December 31st, 2026. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye. We thank Ms. Ramirez for her time. We had a short notice on that one. I don't know if she's on. She was having problems coming on. Sort of a newish member in our community. We look forward. We do need to fill up that board. We had amazing chairs last week. We were all sort of really, I think, impressed with the reports, the chairs, their excitement to be and move those committees, the land use committees forwards. This is one of them. So I'm looking forward to filling up with more folks that dosed on those. Thank you, Dana White, for the work you did until now on that committee. Sue?
Okay. Did we vote on that one? I can't remember anymore. Yeah, okay. Snow and ice assessments. Whereas on February 19th, 2025, the Board of Trustees adopted resolutions asserting fees for snow and ice removal pursuant with Section 229-6C for the properties of owners of 1, 8, 11, and 11A Piping Rock Road, and whereas the Board of Trustees discussed the assessments of the properties as well as the proposed assessments of 10 and 11B Piping Rock Road. Now therefore be it resolved that the resolutions adopted on February 19th regarding 1, 8, 11, and 11A Piping Rock Road are being recalled, and be it further resolved the snow and ice assessments for 1, 8, 10, 11, 11A, 11B Piping Rock Road for the work performed by Diego's Landscaping and Construction Corporation on January 29, 2025 are waived, and that any payments that were made by the property owners for the village for the snow and ice removal on January 29, 2025 shall be refunded, and be it further resolved that the waiver of the snow and ice assessments is only for the work performed on the aforementioned properties on January 29th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
I
Oh,
just
sorry.
want to do a comment. This is a one-time waiver. There was some, I think, areas for some flexibility here by the board. And after looking at the whole situation, it's a one-time waiver. We'll be sending notes out. So we appreciate when the public comes in front of us. We don't always say no. We sometimes say yes based on information. I appreciate all the board's time on this topic. Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any continuing business of the board? New business of the board. Agreement with Westchester County Employee Assistance. Resolved that following review of Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with Westchester County through the county's Department of Community Mental Health for the county to provide services under Article 25 funding for substance abuse services and Article 41 of the mental hygiene law, and to render employee assistance program services for the village as described in Schedule A, scope of services, and be it further resolved that the village shall pay the county a fee of $45 per employee per year for a 5-year term of the agreement expiring December 31st, 2029. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, another new item of the board. Authorized proposal for specialized landscaping services, Henry Gordine Park. Resolved that following review by Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign a proposal for DJ Travis's Landscaping, Inc., 1150 Oregon Road, Cortland Manor, New York, to provide specialized landscaping services for Henry Gordine Park from March 24th, 2025 to November 30th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
Second?
Okay, are there
got
any
it.
comments? I think that
Yes.
trustee Yost has one being on.
What?
Rab, I had asked him his opinion on this.
Yeah, so just for folks understanding that the reason that this is a little bit different is because this year the Harbor Square, who had been responsible for the maintenance of the Henry Gordine Park for the last 7 years, 10 years.
I think that was a 10-year.
Right, it was a 10-year plan, and so that got picked up, and there's a significant amount of a different kind of landscaping down there along the waterfront and in that specific park, which is fundamentally different from the kind of work that's regularly done by our fantastic Parks and Recs crew. And so, we talked about this actually at the Rec Advisory Board last year when it was starting to come up, and we knew that it was going to happen, and it just seemed to make sense that let's allow the Parks and Rec department to focus on the stuff that they do on a regular basis, that they do really well without having to go and start doing specialized work. And it seems reasonable. So
I do want to say that when I clicked onto the contract, there's an optional part to also do the play area, so we're not, okay, it wasn't clear to me whether it included that, which way you were going with it. You're just going with the actual landscaping and all of, it's not just landscaping, it's all of the specialized plants, et cetera.
The Parks Department will take care of the mowing of the lawn and the mulch in the play area. This is specific to the gardens and specimen plantings and things like that that are also on that property that aren't in any of our other parks.
Right, so I think the public should also note, I do get requests for why don't we do, White Plains has these very cute little parks with lots of flowers and all that. We have planted in some areas like Richard Wishney Park where we have planted pollinator gardens, which I personally, I think people know that, would like to see many more of those. Maintaining those things though in more of a public space, like that area where we have so many commuters going through that area, part of the park, a lot of foot traffic there, does require a lot of maintenance. We knew about it when the agreement was done 10 years ago. This is not a surprise. Nobody's asking for something that hasn't been agreed to in the past. And we don't necessarily have the expertise. If we have many more of these, we might expertise in it. But for now, I think this is a good solution. So I thank everybody for putting that together.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session for
Legal
Matters of
matters.
pending litigation.
matters of pending litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. 9:02. I appreciate everybody's time. Last week, the meetings ran late. We're pretty good this time. So have a good evening and we will see you at our next meeting. Good night.